The lavish royal banquet begins in radiant golden light, where the silent idols stand waiting. Then King Belshazzar raises his wine cup, letting out a roaring laugh among 1,000 rejoicing nobles. At that moment, the king commands the sacred gold and silver vessels to be brought, those taken from the temple in Jerusalem. From then on, the treasures of God are placed upon the banquet table of the blasphemer, gleaming under the bright lights. Now, they drink together from the holy cups, their hearts filled with pride and boundless extravagance. A moment later, praises ring out, honoring mindless idols of iron, wood, and precious stone. Meanwhile, a mysterious hand appears upon the white wall, leaving behind the letters of destiny. At the exact same time, the king's face turns pale, his pride vanishes, replaced by absolute and crushing terror. Gradually, the crowd falls into chaos as the magicians fail to decipher the message from the unseen world. Then, a heavy silence envelops the banquet hall, ending the days of a most magnificent dynasty. Slowly, the Queen Mother steps forward, her calmness like the final light within the terrifying night. Finally, darkness swallows everything, closing a chapter of history filled with arrogance and vain illusion. The lavish royal banquet begins under magnificent golden lights, echoing with vibrant laughter and conversation. King Belshazzar and his nobles raise their cups in toast, immersed in the sheer arrogance of imperial power. At this moment, a mysterious hand appears upon the white wall, slowly carving strange letters. Upon seeing those writings, the king's face turns pale, his mind is bewildered, and his body shakes with absolute terror. The revelry vanishes, giving way to terrified whispers that envelop the entire grand banquet hall. The king loudly commands, summoning the magicians and astrologers to decipher that strange message. Then, the wise men hurriedly enter, their faces filled with anxiety as they look upon the glowing inscription. However, not a single one of them can read or understand the meaning of those letters. King Belshazzar becomes deeply troubled, while his grand nobles look at each other in speechless confusion. At that moment, the Queen Mother enters the banquet hall with a calm demeanor, wishing to ease the king's anxiety. She speaks of Daniel, a man possessed of a divine spirit and extraordinary wisdom, like that of God himself. General Arioch immediately obeys the command, hastening through the silent night to find Daniel. Meanwhile, Daniel maintains his serenity, remaining still amidst the unfolding crisis. Afterward, Daniel slowly enters the grand hall, where confusion still grips the gathered assembly. As his eyes lock onto the sacred characters, Daniel fully comprehends the judgment that is coming. The cold truth rings out, leaving the king and his nobles paralyzed with fear. Slowly, the glowing inscription fades away, marking the end of a once proud empire. Finally, the space returns to its quiet stillness, leaving behind a heavy reflection on the era. And then, dawn begins to break, gently closing a turbulent chapter of history. The atmosphere of the Babylonian royal palace that night is filled with luxury, echoing with the laughter of partying. Then, King Belshazzar arrogantly raises the sacred vessel, completely unaware of the doom about to strike. At that moment, amidst the boisterous music, thousands of distinguished guests immerse themselves in the fake prosperity of the kingdom. Suddenly, an invisible hand appears upon the wall, writing characters full of omen. Meanwhile, the entire hall plunges into terror. Everyone's face turns pale with fright. Now, the king trembles violently, his breath coming in gasps before the judgment manifested on the wall. Gradually, the magicians and wise men are hurriedly brought before the powerful throne. A moment later, even the wisest minds stand helpless before the strange, mystical characters. Then, the Queen Mother calmly enters, her sharp eyes seeing through the current chaotic situation. By the threshold of power, she reminds the king of a wise man from the land of Judah. Amidst the gentle breeze swaying the curtains, Daniel appears with a calm and humble demeanor. Afterward, Daniel slowly recounts the story of the predecessor king, who once received sublime glory. At that moment, the memory of the former king's wild wilderness days seems to appear, recalling the righteousness of the Most High. Gradually, sharp interpretations from Daniel are uttered, shaking the entire radiant room. Then, the meaning of TEKEL rings out, clearly indicating that the king's sovereignty has been weighed and found wanting. A moment later, the king commands the purple robe to be given to Daniel as promised.
A moment later, the king commands the purple robe to be given to Daniel as promised, regardless of destiny. Meanwhile, the scarlet robe is draped over him, turning him into the third most powerful ruler. As the light begins to dim, anxiety envelops this entire magnificent hall. Gradually, the last candles flicker out, leaving the room in pitch darkness. Afterward, he leaves the banqueting place, his silhouette fading into the silent palace corridor. At that moment, outside the vast city of Babylon, darkness envelops the fortified walls. A moment later, the waters of the Euphrates River seem to run dry, creating a secret passage for the enemy. Meanwhile, the Mede and Persian armies quietly enter the city under the cover of darkness. And then, a deathly silence covers the entire capital before the crisis unfolds. Gradually, the soldiers guarding the city are still fast asleep, unaware of the approaching danger. Afterward, the decisive footsteps of the army have reached the fortified gates of Babylon. At that moment, the palace is still brightly lit, completely unaware that its dynasty is about to end. A moment later, the wind whistling through the stone doors sounds like a farewell melody to a great empire. Meanwhile, the heavy city gates begin to shake under the pressure of the soldiers. And then, the entire city of Babylon sinks into a terrifying silence, as if waiting for the unavoidable. Gradually, the small flames of the invaders begin to shine in the dark Babylonian night. Afterward, the sound of crashing rings out, signaling the collapse of a once proud dynasty. At that moment, destiny is sealed for Belshazzar on that very night of lavish feasting. A moment later, the clashing of weapons echoes throughout the capital, completely ending imperial vanity. Meanwhile, screams begin to echo from within the splendid and wealthy palace. And then, the final Chaldean king has to face his tragic end right in the dark night. Gradually, the new dynasty begins to be established, under the rule of Darius the Mede. Afterward, the rowdiness gradually fades, giving way to the new order of an unfamiliar era. At that moment, a pale dawn begins to break on the horizon, illuminating the new kingdom. A moment later, power is transferred, opening a new chapter of history for the exiled people. Meanwhile, the golden vessel lies rolling on the floor, a symbol of the vanity of earthly power. And then, Darius begins to take over a mighty empire at the venerable age of 62. Gradually, the memories of last night's arrogance slowly fade with the rising morning light. Afterward, the bright morning sun shines upon the city walls like a promise of a new day. At that moment, amidst the heart of the capital that has changed masters, Daniel still holds fast to his faith in the Most High. A moment later, in the stillness of faith, he finds peace amidst the upheavals. Meanwhile, lessons from history always remind of the finitude of sovereign power. And then, the city gradually awakens under the harmonious sunlight, beginning new, peaceful rhythms of life. Finally, an empire has faded away, leaving behind a peaceful silence upon the ancient rocks.
Ngươi là người đã đọc điềm báo của đêm nay, hãy đứng lên, ta cần sự khôn ngoan của ngươi. Tôi sẵn sàng phục vụ vương quốc này với đức tin và lòng trung thành, thưa bệ hạ.
Then Daniel was brought before the king's sight. Amidst the trembling banquet hall under fading torchlight, King Belshazzar spoke, Are you that Daniel of the exile race, whom my father brought from Judah?
Ngươi có phải là
To
Daniel,
this
người lưu
majestic
vong mà cha ta đã
place.
mang từ Juda đến đây không?
I have heard that the spirit of the gods resides in your soul, bringing light, understanding, and wisdom to make us whole. The wise men have bowed in failure before this mystery profound. If you can read this writing, your reward shall abound. Clothed in purple, a gold chain on your neck, third ruler of the ground. Let your gifts remain with you alone,
MENE,
and give your
Chúa đã đến
rewards
dương
to
quốc Ngài,
another
để
near
đưa
the
đến ngày
throne.
kết thúc. Mọi vinh
Yet
quang của
I
ta
will
sẽ tan
read
thành
the
mây khói sao?
writing and make its meaning clear. Remember Nebuchadnezzar, your father, who molded fear. The Most High God gave him sovereignty, grandeur, and fame. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened in his name, he was deposed from his kingly throne, his glory stripped away, driven from men eating grass like oxen until his humbling day. But you, Belshazzar, though you do all of this, your heart was not humble. You chose the dark abyss. You have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven's height, bringing the vessels of his house into your drunken night. You praise the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see, nor hear, nor know from their worthless throne. But the God who holds your breath and all your ways in his hand, him you have not glorified across this sinful land.
Lạy Chúa, xin thương xót cho những linh hồn lầm lạc trong đêm nay.
Cầu cho hòa bình sẽ đến sau cơn hỏa hoạn này, hỡi tiên tri.
Therefore, from his presence, the hand was sent to write this inscription, a terrifying judgment. And these are the words written, burning bright in
Sự
the
thông thái của chúng
night.
ta chẳng thể cứu vãn được điều này. Hơi thông nữa.
UPHARSIN.
Mọi kiến thức về thiên văn
Here
giờ cũng
now,
chẳng còn ý
King.
nghĩa nữa.
The meaning of the divine hand. God has numbered your kingdom and brought it to an end. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting in his eyes. Your kingdom is divided, given to the Medes and Persians as your empire dies!
And her treasures are scattered.
Then Belshazzar gave the command to clothe him in purple dress, a chain of gold around his neck, the ruler confessed. But oh Babylon, can late glory save your falling crown? When the judgment of heaven instantly strikes you down, that very night the Chaldean king blood mixed with wine, the arrogant empire ended its reign. A silent mist covers the palace hall so grand. The empire changes hands across the darkened land. King Darius the Mede steps through the ashes old, at 62 years of age, taking over a kingdom cold. Babylon has fallen in the dead of night. Babylon has fallen in the dead of night.
Babylon falls. The old dynasty vanishes in the night, and Darius immediately takes over the kingdom at the age of 62. As dawn breaks, Daniel quickly excels by his extraordinary spirit, inciting jealous rivals to plot against him with a strict prayer ban. Remaining faithful to his God, the courageous prophet now faces the deadly jaws of the lion's den. Watch Daniel chapter 7 to witness a breathtaking clash between pure faith and certain death, and the miraculous survival from the depths of the abyss.
If today's story has encouraged and inspired you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your family, friends, and loved ones. Your support is a tremendous source of encouragement that motivates me to continue creating more high-quality biblical cinematic stories for everyone around the world. Thank you for being part of this journey.